Did you know that in the original Super Mario Bros. You could access to over 256 levels? Or that there is something that only happened once in the history of the game? 1983 was an obscure year for video games. The market was oversaturated with poor quality games, such as E.T. on the Atari 2600, in what is known as the video game crash of 1983. However, one game would completely end this dark age and give birth to video games the way we know them up to this day. The game in question was the legendary Super Mario Bros. For the Nintendo Entertainment System. In this Iceberg, we'll take a look at the secrets, mysteries, Easter eggs, and unused content of what's probably the most important video game in history. Welcome to the Super Mario Bros. Iceberg.
Say my name. Eisenberg. You're goddamn right.
Blue and purple sky. Close your eyes and think about the old days when you played this game when you were a kid. Can you tell me what the color of the sky was in Super Mario Bros.? Was it blue? Or maybe purple? The color you might remember depends on the version you were playing as well as the TV, especially if we're talking about CRT TVs from the old days. We can see a purple sky in the Nintendo Switch Online version of the game, but if you play the Game Boy Advance game, the sky will be blue. I couldn't confirm the veracity of this claim, but supposedly there was an interview with Shigeru Miyamoto in 2003 in which he spoke about the sky in Super Mario Bros. At that time, you could only have about 3 colors for the blue sky in the family computer. It took me a while to decide which one I would use, and eventually I picked the purplish one. I felt that purple had the depth of nature. I was really into that. If somebody can confirm that this interview is real, I'll be really grateful. Infinite 1-ups. On World 3-1, there are 2 Koopa Troopas under stairs right before the flagpole. Get as close to the next step as possible and jump on the second one when he's on the edge of any step. Get as close to the next step as possible and jump onto the second one when he's on the edge of any step. Once he's in the shell, jump one more time, and if the shell bounces and stops, you know you're on the right track. Jump a couple more times until Mario automatically starts bouncing repeatedly, and claim as many 1-ups as possible before the timer reaches 0. Cover art. We all know the iconic cover art of Super Mario Bros., but have you ever wondered what is Mario doing in it? We can see Fire Mario against the wall while shooting a fireball, but you can see something red under his feet. That is actually lava, and this very picture shows Mario an instant away from losing his life in Bowser's castle. It's kind of funny to see that the very game and ultimate video game mascot that saved the video game industry is shown in the cover art in this fashion. I guess he sacrificed himself in the name of video games. Jumping over the flagpole. I'm sure you've wondered what lies beyond the limits of many of your favorite games, and Super Mario Bros. Is no exception. When we get to the end of most levels, we can see the iconic flagpole, but I'm sure that more than one has tried to jump over it to explore what in our minds could be a secret portion of the level. I did that in 3-3 because at the end of the level, there are 2 platforms that you can control with your weight. If you manage to leave the second platform as high as possible and jump from the edge, you'll be able to reach the other side. This can also be done by performing a glitch in which you stomp on a Koopa Troopa right before it disappears into a void. When it gets out of the shell, let it walk toward the end of the level, and when it's next to the pole, jump as if you wanted to stomp on it, and this will help you get over the pole. Sadly, there's not a lot beyond, as you'll be running endlessly until the timer kills you. In the lost levels, you can jump over the flagpole in World 3-1 by using a spring. Nonetheless, this time there's a surprise at the end, a warp zone that will take you back to the first level of the game. Minus World. If there's a glitch that rivals Missing No in Pokemon Red and Blue, that is the Minus World. In order to reach this level, you need to get to the exit pipe in 1-2. The most popular method was to reach the end as Big Mario, crouch on the edge of the pipe facing away from the wall, and jump to the right by crouching. It might take a couple of tries, but if you do it right, you'll clip through the wall and be able to reach the warp zone pipes. However, as soon as the first pipe is visible, jump into it. This will take you to the Minus World, a corrupted version of World 7-2, an aquatic world that, contrary to its normal counterpart, it will loop indefinitely whether you finish the level or die. You can also perform this trick in the Japanese version with a different result. The Minus World will be quite different from the American version, as you'll see the sprites of Princess Toadstool and Koopa, and you'll be able to swim in the sky. But there's more, as once you finish the level, instead of it repeating, it actually sends you to World -2 and -3, each one weirder than the previous. This world is referenced in Super Paper Mario, as a resident of the Underwear, a place similar to Limbo, also calls it World -1. The only way to escape this world is to lose all your lives or reset your game. However, this is just the tip of the iceberg, as deeper, we'll take a look at other worlds like this. Fireworks. I'm sure that anyone who has played the game more than once has seen fireworks appear after finishing a level. While it might seem random, the fireworks actually trigger when the last digit of the timer is 1, 3 or 6. The number of fireworks corresponds to the specific digit. Reused levels. It's a bit hard to notice, but levels 1-3, 1-4, 2-2, 2-3 and 2-4 are easier counterparts of 5-3, 6-4, 7-2, 7-3 and 5-4 respectively. There are slight differences such as the number of enemies on the stages. For example, 2-3 only contains Chip Chips, but 7-3 makes it more difficult as you can also find Koopa Troopas. Impatient Hammer Brothers. The Hammer Brothers are one of the most tricky enemies you can face. Sometimes they'll bring you to a stop because of their hammers, and you might take a while before you figure out how to get through, but after some time they grow impatient and they'll simply walk toward you. Second quest. After you complete the main game, you're introduced to the second quest that features a couple of changes. For example, all Goombas are replaced by bossy beetles. With the exception of piranha plants, all enemies move faster. Moving platforms are narrower. The Hammer Brothers take less time before walking toward the player. In the first quest, we have harder counterparts of some levels, as I mentioned in the reused levels entry. However, in the second quest, these levels are the exact same. The Lost Levels. A game that had a major impact like Super Mario Bros. Was bound to have a sequel. This came in the shape of Super Mario Bros. 2 in America, which felt like a completely different game because it was. And don't get me wrong, I love the sequel we got on this side of the world, but it didn't feel like Super Mario Bros. The original game was called Doki Doki Panic, and calling Super Mario Bros. 2 a mere reskin would be unfair, as there are significant changes made to adapt it to the Mario universe. Enemies like Shy Guys and Birdo, that originated in Doki Doki Panic, went on to become iconic characters in future Nintendo titles. Why is it that the real Super Mario Bros. 2 didn't release in America? It all started with Howard Phillips, a man that Nintendo of America had hired to try games from Japan before their release in America, among other things. When he got his hands on the Japanese Super Mario Bros. 2, he experienced what probably most of us did when we played the first level of the game. He got killed by a poison mushroom. As he continued playing, he realized all the punishments the game is infamous for, and thought that it wouldn't be a good idea to release this game in America. Even though I'm sure that players in America wouldn't have had a problem with the difficulty, I'm glad we got to know Doki Doki Panic in the shape of Super Mario Bros. 2, rather than a game that could have felt like an expansion of the original. It wouldn't be until 1993 that we would get the chance to play the real sequel to Super Mario Bros. With the release of Super Mario All-Stars for the SNES. However, we would play it with improved graphics, but if you wanted to play the original version in America without getting a Japanese copy, the game was released on the Wii U's Virtual Console in 2014. Luigi's Physics. Although Luigi was present in Super Mario Bros., he played exactly as Mario. However, in the lost levels, Luigi can jump higher but has lower traction, meaning he's harder to control, especially in levels requiring precision platforming. Fantasy World. You might have not noticed this if you finished Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels using warp zones. If you complete the game by clearing all 32 stages, you'll be presented with the fantasy world. As the name implies, this world is out of the ordinary, even more than the normal stages, as you'll be able to swim in the air while avoiding out-of-place enemies and other elements. It's worth noting that the fantasy world isn't an original concept, as it drew inspiration from an obscure glitch that only occurred in the Japanese version of the original Super Mario Bros. We'll take a look at that deeper in the Iceberg. Fake Bowser. I thought that every time you reach a castle, your final enemy is Bowser, but in reality these are fake Bowsers who are actually his minions disguised as him in the first 7 castles. Their true identities respectively are a Goomba, a Koopa Troopa, a Bossy Beetle, a Spiny, a Lakitu, a Blooper, and a Hammer Brother. Clouds and bushes are the same. As the entry states, clouds and bushes are just variants of the same sprite. This was referenced in Mario Kart 7 in the Piranha Plant slide course, as the clouds have the same shape as the bushes. Small Fire Mario. In order to perform this glitch, you need to be Super Mario and be hit by Bowser while touching the axe at the same time. In the next stage, get a mushroom and you'll go back to being Small Mario, at least graphically. Now, find a fire flower and you'll be able to shoot fireballs as Small Mario. A+ start. I went decades without knowing this. If you're not particularly skilled at Super Mario Bros. And feel like quitting after the game sends you back to the beginning, all you have to do is press A+ start to continue from the world where you left off. Bowser's Hammer's Hitbox. This is a short one. For some reason, the hammers that Bowser throws starting from level 6-4 won't hit you if you are to his right. Most expensive game. If you're worried about having to pay $100 for the standard version of GTA 6, you might be wondering, how is it that a 40-year-old video game can be sold for 20,000 times the price of an anticipated modern game? Considering the significance that Super Mario Bros. Holds even to this day, it's no wonder how this pristine copy of Super Mario Bros., a cornerstone of gaming culture, sold for $2 million. Toads were turned into blocks. In the instruction booklet of the original Super Mario Bros., it is stated that the inhabitants of the Mushroom Kingdom were turned into blocks. Due to this, there's this rumor that every time you break a block, you are murdering toads. Nonetheless, if you keep reading, you'll find out that only blocks that contain power-ups are toads, and since they're indestructible, the inhabitants of the Mushroom Kingdom are safe. Black Magic. According to the instruction booklet, Bowser and his clan are users of black magic, something that hasn't been referenced ever again. Super Mario Bros. In Animal Crossing. In Animal Crossing for the GameCube, you can obtain NES games via a lottery, a memory card with certain save files on it, or via promotional cards. You can actually play them inside the game on your GameCube, but there are a couple of games that are completely unobtainable without the aid of cheating devices, being one of them Super Mario Bros. Small Castle in 5-1. This has to be an oversight. Every time you exit Bowser's castle, you start the next world right outside a huge castle. However, in 5-1, you come out of a regular castle. It's very strange that in the remaster in Super Mario All-Stars, they did the exact same thing, so it's either a double oversight or there's more to it. Yoshi in Super Mario Bros. Yoshi debuted in Super Mario World, but there's concept art of Mario riding an early version of Yoshi that sadly couldn't be implemented due to technical constraints. Hidden Castle Block. Did you know that Mario fakes entering castles when he finishes some levels? Yes, Mario doesn't really enter the castle. Instead, he switches to the background and keeps walking, but what prevents him from moving forward is a block that blends in with the castle's texture. Mysterious Blue Bowser. In World 8-4, just before confronting Bowser, a blue-bodied Bowser must be fought. He has the same abilities as Bowser, but his true identity is unknown. This is the information found in the 30th anniversary Super Mario Bros. Encyclopedia, and it refers to the blue Bowser found in World 8-4. However, there are two more blue Bowsers in 9-3 and D-4 in Super Mario Bros. The Lost Levels. Let's discard the blue Bowser in D-4, as when you defeat him with fireballs, it's revealed that it was just a Spiny in disguise. That leaves us with two blue Bowsers. While one of the most recent sources states that his identity is unknown, there are older sources that reveal something different. They reveal that this blue Bowser is actually Bowser's younger brother. However, according to a video by Speedrunner Cosmic, this is actually a technical issue that has to do with the axe at the end of Bowser's castle. For some strange reason, if Bowser is close to the axe, it will display his normal colors, but if the axe isn't loaded, which is the case for all blue Bowsers, Bowser will be bluish. In fact, if you pay attention to the sprites of all the enemies that are supposed to be light green, such as Koopa Troopas and Piranha Plants, you can see that they become bluish when they're in Bowser's castle or in the underground. I'm no expert, but I guess these colors have to do with how many colors the NES could handle at the same time. However, this doesn't really explain why the axe plays a key role on what palette the enemies display. Regardless, Nintendo decided to come up with a deeper story with Bowser's mysterious relative. Mario's design limitations. In an interview with Conan O'Brien, Shigeru Miyamoto stated that Mario had a mustache because in that way they avoided drawing a detailed face, and mixing a nose with a mustache saved them a lot of problems. Back then, video game designers had to come up with interesting ideas to overcome the system's limitations. A prime example is the Morph Ball in Metroid, where instead of making a sprite and animation to represent Samus crouching, they decided to make her a sphere that would become iconic in future Metroid games. Super Mario Bros. Frustration. There's a good chance that back in 2007, you came across this classic YouTube video. Super Mario Bros. Frustration showcases a player making a series of humoristic comments while playing a modified version of Super Mario Bros. That takes difficulty to the limit. Power Up Jingle. I'm sure you're familiar with this sound. In the same way that Boo's laughter in Super Mario 64 is a sped-up version of Bowser's laughter, the power-up sound is a faster version of the Flagpole jingle. Here's the sound. Toad is flipping the bird. This cannot be intentional, but if you take a closer look at Toad when he tells you that the princess is in another castle, it almost looks like he's flipping the bird with both hands. As if it weren't enough to say that your search for the princess was in vain, he still has the nerve to throw that gesture. The Great Gianna Sisters. The Great Gianna Sisters took heavy inspiration from Super Mario Bros. And is often regarded as the first true Mario clone, and for good reason. Released in 1987 for the Commodore 64 and other platforms, it was intended to be a legally distinct yet unmistakably similar alternative to Super Mario Bros. The game was developed in response to the lack of Mario-style platformers on home computers like the Commodore 64 and Amiga, with an emphasis on closely mirroring Super Mario Bros. Gameplay. However, shortly after its UK release, publisher Rainbow Arts received a legal notice from Nintendo, leading to the game's removal from store shelves. Despite this controversy, the Great Gianna Sisters earned a fair amount of critical acclaim and later inspired spiritual successors like Gianna Sisters DS, which also received positive reviews. Ironically, the franchise that once had Nintendo up in arms eventually saw a sequel released on a Nintendo console, though this time with a more original design. Super Mario Bros. The Movie. The 90s were the video game movie era. We got movies like Street Fighter, Mortal Kombat, and of course Super Mario Bros. But no, it wasn't anything like the 2023 movie. Back in the day, we had real people interpreting plumbers, dragon turtles, and we also had dinosaurs playing as dinosaurs. The 1993 Super Mario Bros. Movie can be described as a fever dream, a projection of a dark alternate reality that could never happen in our universe, and yet it did. Several big names in the movie industry, including Tom Hanks and Dustin Hoffman, were interested in playing Mario, but for one reason or another, Nintendo didn't give them the role of the Italian plumber. Danny DeVito was offered the role, but declined after reading the script. Arnold Schwarzenegger and Michael Keaton were considered for playing Bowser, but declined as well. Ultimately, the role went to Bob Hoskins as Mario, John Leguizamo as Luigi, Dennis Hopper as Bowser, and Samantha Mathis as Princess Daisy. The movie was a complete nightmare for everyone on set. Bob Hoskins never missed a chance to say that the Super Mario Bros. Movie was the worst work he had ever done. Due to the stress of the disastrous production, Hoskins and Leguizamo would drink alcohol between shoots, and one day they were about to film a stunt scene in which Luigi is driving the Super Mario Bros. Van. Considering how drunk Leguizamo was, he was driving erratically and had to hit the brakes, which resulted in Bob's fingers getting slammed by the van's sliding door. In spite of the clear freedoms they took and the huge failure it was, in recent years it has gained a cult status. The frame rule system. You might think that by making it to the end of the level without losing a single frame would give you an advantage over somebody who made it 1 or 2 frames later in the context of speedrunning, but this is not the case. Super Mario Bros. Checks if you've beaten a level every 21 frames. There's an explanation by a speedrunner called Darbian that reaching the end of the level works as a bus stop, where once you reach the end, you have to wait for a scheduled bus that leaves every 21 frames. This means that if you get there 20 frames after the bus leaves, you have the same advantage as somebody who arrived only 1 frame after the last bus departed. However, we must consider that 21 frames is only 0.35 seconds, so it's not like you have much room for error, especially if we consider that 8-4 has to be played perfectly, because it's the only part of the game where the frame rule system doesn't apply. Badaboon Speedrun. Badaboon is one of the most controversial YouTube channels in Mexico, but what they did in 2017 would earn them international infamy, and it has to do with Super Mario Bros. A guy by the name of Tabo Betancourt records himself allegedly finishing Super Mario Bros. In under 5 minutes. Carl Jobst made a video on the matter exposing this fake speedrun, pointing out the elements out of place. As soon as the game starts, we can already notice a red flag, as we can see Mario performing fast acceleration, an input that it's either impossible to perform with an NES controller as it requires pressing left and right at the same time, or it takes a series of frame-perfect inputs that I'm not even sure they save any time on this stage due to the frame rule previously explained. However, the most evident element of cheating is the fact that it's a stolen tool-assisted speedrun by KLMC and also sections of speedruns by Darbian and Cosmic. If you want a closer look at the sins committed by this YouTube channel, please check out the analysis by Carl Jobst. Wall jumping. In Super Mario Bros. And its sequel, the walls are made up of square blocks. If Mario lands on the very corner of one of these blocks, he can stand there for a single frame, just long enough to execute a wall jump. This technique is very useful in speedruns, especially in World 8-4, where Mario needs to reveal a hidden block to reach a pipe. Flagpole glitch. This is considered one of the most difficult tricks to pull off, to the extent that it was believed to be impossible for humans to do consistently. There's a block under the flagpole that Mario is able to clip through. The importance lies in the fact that it won't play the descending flag animation if you do it, saving some time. The problem with this is that if you think that you need to be precise, it goes beyond that. We're familiar with pixels, which are considered the smallest individual graphical unit, but in speedrunning, you have to take into account subpixels in order to perform certain tricks to be able to beat the world record. Each pixel has 16 subpixels, and landing on a very specific subpixel can be a nightmare even for skilled players. Bullet Bill Glitch. This is a variant of the flagpole glitch, and not only does it skip the flag descending, but also the time it takes Mario to walk from the flagpole to the entrance of the castle, and it can be done in 8-2. By itself, this glitch is known as a full flagpole glitch, and it happens when Mario clips through the flagpole space lower than by performing a regular flagpole glitch. But in order to pull it off consistently, you need to perform the bullet bill glitch. At the end of the level, there's a bullet bill at ground level that shoots toward the flagpole. You need to wait for a bit for this enemy to reach a specific spot, and then time your jump so that you land on it as low as possible. This will cause Mario to bounce and clip through the flagpole's block lower than by performing a regular flagpole glitch. Wrong warp. A wrong warp in Super Mario Bros. Is a glitch that allows Mario to warp to unintended locations by manipulating the screen so that it doesn't scroll entirely and use a pipe that would normally take you to a certain location. I'm sure that this is what happens when you do the minus world glitch, as when you get to the other side and enter the pipe, the screen hasn't scrolled completely, in contrast to when you do the trick and walk farther, which will take you to the intended worlds. This wrong warp is essential in speedrunning, as it is mandatory in 4-2 and 8-4 to stand a chance for a world record, provided you combine it with a series of tricks that were once believed to be impossible for human players. Fast acceleration. Fast acceleration refers to a technique used in speedrunning to make Mario move faster at the beginning of a level. A method to do this is by pressing left and right at the same time, something impossible to do on console without messing with your controller. But there's another way to make it happen on console. Press left for a single frame, skip any input in the second, then press right and tap A for a single frame. All Night Nippon Super Mario Bros. This 1986 game is probably the most bizarre version of Super Mario Bros. First of all, it combines both Super Mario Bros. And Super Mario Bros. 2 The Lost Levels, but also some enemies are replaced by the sprite of DJ Sonplaza Nakano, the Friday night host of the Japanese radio program All Night Nippon. The toads in the castles are also replaced by the hosts of the show, and due to the fact that only 3,040 copies were released, it's an expensive collector's item. Hidden Green Chip Chip. In World 2-3 and 7-3, there's a single green chip hidden in the level. You can only see it if you stomp on it from the top of the screen by using an infinite jumping glitch. Perfect Speedrun. A tool-assisted speedrun or task is a type of video game playthrough where players use external tools to achieve perfect or near-perfect gameplay, generally doing things that would be nearly impossible for a human player in real time. With emulators and the aid of save stats, input recording, RNG manipulation among other elements, we know what the perfect time is when it comes to beating Super Mario Bros. As fast as possible. That time is 4:54:03, but disregarding impossible inputs like left plus right, that leaves us with a time of 4:54:26. This is the time that is taken into account when it comes to humans achieving perfection. As to this day, the world record sits at 4:54:56, meaning that Niftsky, the world record holder, is only 18 frames or 0.3 seconds from perfection. However, we'll see that there's an event that only happened once, and that if replicated, the world record could be lowered to 4:43 instead of 4:54. Communist Mario. This theory is quite old, but it was popularized by game theory. Super Mario Bros. Uses red as one of the main colors to represent Mario. This color is linked to communism. The physical resemblance between Mario and Stalin is striking, with that big mustache and hat. When Mario finishes a level, he raises a white flag with a red star, a symbol that represents the 5 fingers of the communist worker's hand. Mario has been depicted as both a carpenter and a plumber, professions traditionally associated with the working class. Wario, Mario's antithesis, is defined by his greed, with his primary goal being the pursuit of treasures, wealth, and material possessions. Although putting it like this sounds like Mario is definitely a communist, there are other elements that can easily debunk this. The true lost levels. When we speak about lost levels, we immediately think about the lost sequel of Super Mario Bros. That took years to see a release in the American market. But the true lost levels refer to a rumor that spread in Japan about the possibility of playing over 256 levels in the original game. A Japanese publication called Family Computer Magazine claimed that there were 256 secret levels. However, the method to unlock them was incredibly complicated. First, you would need a Famicom, the Family Basic peripheral, and the original Super Mario Bros. Start up the Family Basic cartridge and go to the basic program environment. You'll need to enter a couple of lines of code and a number that will represent the hidden worlds you want to access. When you're done, swap the cartridge with Super Mario Bros., hit the reset button, hold A and press start, and you'll be able to access one of the 256 secret levels. As I mentioned in the Fantasy World entry, these hidden levels inspired the creation of World 9 or Fantasy World in the original Super Mario Bros. 2, as we are presented with levels in which we can swim in the air or find out-of-place enemies or obstacles in random stages. The Mystery of 4-1. I spoke about this in my Perfect Dark Iceberg when talking about the Chicago Ghost. There are unexplainable occurrences that escape even experts, such as that time when speedrunner Dota Teabag was catapulted upwards without explanation. There have been several attempts at explaining this event, including cosmic rays hitting the N64 and causing a bit to flip. However, there's a lot of misinformation that went viral on the matter, and the event remains unsolved. Going back to Super Mario Bros., there's an equivalent of that once-in-a-lifetime event that happened to a speedrunner by the name of Mav6771. You can notice that he wasn't recording before this happened, as the video starts with the game paused in the middle of the glitch. As far as I know, the only way to pull this off is by performing the bullet bill glitch, or by clipping through the floor in order to grab the flagpole as low as possible. As explained by speedrunner Cosmic, this is considered the biggest unsolved mystery in the history of the game, and if it were possible to do it consistently in all levels with a flagpole, it would save around 10 seconds, completely destroying even TAS world records. Thank you so much for watching. Consider subscribing to the channel, and if you like Pokemon, go to Eisenberg, my channel dedicated to Pokemon icebergs and other interesting topics. See you in the next one.